This is WFYI News Now. It's February 21st, and I'm Abriana Herron. On today's show, a state house bill that could impact drug prices. Another bill that aims to enhance Indiana's role in enforcing federal immigration law. And thousands of donated kidneys in the U.S. were discarded last year, but a company housed at Purdue University's research park in West Lafayette, Indiana, hopes to change that.
Every kidney transplanted into a patient saves Medicare about $2.5 million.
Those stories coming up. But first, Indiana University Indianapolis broke ground on the construction of a new multi-purpose venue this week. The James T. Morris Arena will be open to students and community members. The $110 million sports facility will have a basketball and volleyball court that can seat 45,000 people. The arena will also feature a partially retractable roof, auxiliary gym, community, and office space. Construction is expected to be completed next year. Pharmacy benefits managers, or PBMs, are meant to act as a middleman between drug manufacturers and insurance companies to lower drug prices. But some lawmakers have questioned if that's really the case. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Abigail Ruman reports the Senate approved a bill some lawmakers are calling the most aggressive PBM legislation they have ever seen.
The bill implements a variety of reforms, including one that addresses concerns about what's known as vertical integration, which refers to when one company owns multiple parts of a certain supply chain, such as a company owning a PBM, a pharmacy, and a drug manufacturer. Senator Tyler Johnson introduced language that prohibits a PBM from working with an insurance company that has ownership interest in the PBM. He also included language that prohibits PBMs from having an ownership interest in a pharmacy.
We're trying to get PBMs back to where they were originally intended, to help manage those contracts and negotiations.
Johnson says this would create a firewall for PBMs and could be a meaningful way to address healthcare costs. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Abigail Ruman.
The bill now moves to the House. And House Republicans approved a bill Thursday to enhance Indiana's role in enforcing federal immigration law. Republican Representative J.D. Prescott's bill would give the Attorney General's office more authority to investigate businesses that might be employing undocumented immigrants and creates penalties for those that do.
Penalties start with a warning and suspensions and then work their way up to a revocation of license.
The measure also provides specificity in state law to enforce local governments and law enforcement agencies to cooperate with federal immigration officials. And it gives the governor the power to withhold any state funding from locals that don't for up to a year. Democratic Representative Maureen Bauer says that's not the only funding crisis the bill creates.
We're forcing agencies to divert their funds from violent crime prevention and community outreach, critical functions that keep our communities safe currently.
The House advanced the bill to the Senate along party lines. And for our final story today, more than 100,000 people in the U.S. are on a years-long wait list for a kidney transplant, and despite that, roughly half of the deceased donor kidneys last year were discarded. SideEffects Public Media's Elizabeth Gabriel reports on a new Indiana-based organization trying to revive those discarded kidneys to serve more patients.
Most kidney donations come from people who are recently deceased. Once a kidney is removed from the body, it's placed on ice in a styrofoam cooler and transported to where it's needed. That's when the clock starts ticking. The longer the organ is outside the body, the higher the chances of things going wrong. Transplant surgeons can get a small biopsy of the organ, run imaging, and collect medical information from the donor. But that isn't always enough information, says Leonardo Riella. He is a transplant nephrologist with the Massachusetts General Hospital.
These biopsies are processed very quickly, meaning we cannot do all the stains to look at all the different aspects of the kidney. So we may not be able to actually say what's going on with the rest of the kidney because sometimes things can be spotty in terms of how they affect the kidney.
It makes the surgeon's jobs that much harder. And if the kidney has been outside the body for too long or the surgeons aren't certain it would work efficiently once transplanted, they decline it. It's partly why over 9,000 donated kidneys were discarded last year. That's what 34 Lives hopes to change. It's a company housed at Purdue University's Research Park in West Lafayette, Indiana. They're leading an observational study to preserve kidneys instead of discarding them.
Every kidney transplanted into a patient saves Medicare about $2.5 million.
That's Chris Janes, the co-CEO of 34 Lives. Janes says a typical kidney can't stay outside the body for more than 24 to 36 hours, but the organization works to extend that time frame. 34 Lives places the kidney on a little life support machine.
That allows us to warm it back up to body temperature. We almost trick it into thinking it's still inside a body, and it can start working and functioning just like it was inside a body still.
They provide each kidney with nutrients to let it heal itself. They also run nearly 3 dozen tests to determine how well it works. That allows transplant surgeons to make more informed decisions and help more patients. Indianapolis resident Sylvia Miles was diagnosed with lupus, a chronic autoimmune disease that causes the body's immune system to attack healthy tissue, including her kidney. Miles was on dialysis. She often experienced severe pain. Her muscles would tense up, sometimes making her unable to move or work. Everything changed when Miles received a kidney last year that was saved by 34 Lives.
I tell you, I feel amazing. I haven't had a flare-up since I had transplant, which is a great deal for me.
The company received a $44 million award last year to support their study from the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health, a federal investment agency. Dr. Renee Wagerson was the head of the agency before the Trump administration let her go in February. Side Effects talked to her before she was let go. She said the research could shorten how long people stay on the kidney transplant list. Right now, the average wait is 5 years, and many people die waiting.
Imagine a future where we didn't have to do dialysis at all because we had enough kidneys for everybody, and we can turn around somebody in crisis who needs a kidney, in days to weeks.
Still, reducing the kidney discard rate will only help a fraction of people who need a new kidney. Dr. Riella at Mass General says the issue needs to be addressed in 2 other ways.
One is reducing barrier for living donation so that there are more living donors around. And then, of course, is the xenotransplantation, so looking for organs from other species that have been genetically modified to try to close the gap.
But it could still be years before scientific research can lead to enough kidneys for every patient. Elizabeth Gabriel, Side Effects Public Media.
Side Effects Public Media is a health reporting collaboration of NPR member stations across the Midwest. It's based at WFYI in Indianapolis. That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by Drew Daudelin and Zach Bundy, with support from the news team at WFYI and public media journalists across the state. Our news director is Sarah Neal-Estes. Kendall Antron produced our music, and I'm your host, Abriana Herron. If you like today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back on Monday.